Well, I'm ready to take this thing apart. I'm going to take this cylinder off. There's no head on this, by the way. And we'll get this apart and see what we got inside. Probably exactly what we thought was there. The one bolt here on the bottom is going to be a little bit tough, but anybody that's ever worked on older cars probably recognizes that. And I think that's going to work perfect down in there. Yep. That's a distributor. This is a distributor wrench for Chevrolets. Get out of the way. You're in the way of the camera. Only 4 bolts holding this thing on. We should be able to pull it off and take a look. And I'm probably going to have to make a new gasket. Excuse my arm for a second. I got to get that bottom bolt. Okay, 4 bolts removed. Here we go. Get a rag. Wipe that off and see what we got. The pistons aren't broke, or the rings aren't broke. And the piston just looks a little bit messy. I mean, I've got a lot of oil in there. I don't see any scuffing. We'll take the rings off. They're loose, all loose, so you can see the silicone on here. So this has been apart before because we don't think we need silicone on there. But so while we got that, let's get the spark plug wire out of the way, and I'm going to see if this will turn freely now. No, it's still got some stiffness to it. That's what I was afraid of. Yeah, right now this should spin easily. I should be able to move it with the piston. So that was not the problem. We're going to move on. We're going to take some more pieces apart. Probably have to remove the flywheel. I'm going to look inside the cylinder. See if you can see it. Might have to get more. I might get some light. So you can see inside. Let me get the camera. And it's not too bad. I don't see any scuffing in there. There is some rust. I'll clean that up. Put them rings back in, the same rings. So we know it's not. We know it's not the piston. Process of elimination. So the next thing I got to do is probably get the flywheel off, and I don't see anything in here. And we can see the connecting rod is moving easily, so it's not the connecting rod. It's got to be one of these bearings. I think what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take this side off first, see if I can get the flywheel off, and see if there's something in there that's binding. It's not bad. It's just, it's stiff. So you know, you can't crank it over like it should. So the next thing I'm going to do is take this apart, and I'll get that apart and I'll come back. So I got to move some things out of the way because it's starting to pile up. Pieces are starting to pile down underneath the shelf here. All right, I'll be back. All right, I have removed this pulley to get to these bolts right here. And let me turn this a little bit. My thinking was I could take these bolts off and use this puller. Let me turn a little bit farther this way. There you go. Use that puller using those. Well, these are bolts, and this is a stud or bolt coming from the other side with a nut on it. And what that does is, it's this weight right here, spring-loaded centrifugal weight. So that shot that down because I'm trying to get this pulley off. What I want to show you though is, and I'm trying to get focused on the inside. I think I got you zoomed in far enough. See if I go in a little closer. The wrong way. That's all as far as I can go. But if you can see in there, let me get some light. Well, down on the bottom, you can see the, let me get a pointer. Down here, down in here, is the magnet. It's got a metal plate on top of it, and it's all rusty. And as it passes by, there's another one above it, passes by the coil, and I'll hit you up here where you can see the coil. I got to watch the piston so I don't slam against the... So if you can see the coil right there, I'm going to have to come down a little bit. Let me move this camera down. That's the best I'm going to be able to do. Anyways, here's the coil. And the magnet passes, or the magnets on the flywheel pass by that, and it is dragging when it goes by. Now, I don't think that's the whole problem, but it is right there. There is a hard spot. And it gets better when I get to here, when I pass the magnets. So I need to get the flywheel off. We'll clean those up and see if that's it. It could be. There's a good possibility because there is enough rust on there and on top of the coil that probably messed up the clearance on it. I'm gonna see if I can get you closer. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get the other camera. Hold on. All right. So I've got the camera in here now, so she's gonna have to blend these together. But if you look, you can see the top of the coil, and you can see the flywheel, and you can see where it's where they come close together. That, I think that's where it's rubbing. It's tight, very tight right there because of the rust. And there's the rust I'm talking about on the flywheel. It's on the magnets. And you can see it's pretty thick. Here's a good example. I always got to remember this camera is looking at it backwards from when I'm looking at it. It passes over. There's multiple places where this is touching. But I think that might be where it's at. And then the other thing is, let's go down in here a little bit. You can see the points. There's some rust on the points too. But down the bottom of where the crankshaft's at, and I got to get this flywheel off. I thought I had a puller that would fit it, and then when I found out that I couldn't get that bolt out of there, it kind of changed my plan, my direction. And this is the counterweight I was talking about. That's that bolt. It supports that counterweight. It's a bolt coming from the other side. So anyways, down in here, this is where the crankshaft comes out of through the flywheel. Or I mean, it's into the crankcase. That right there. It's actually right here. There's where it's moving. I might put a little oil in there, but I think I'm going to have to take the flywheel off and clean it up. It's all rusty. I think that's most of my problem. Moisture got in here as it was sitting. And, you know, when things get cold and hot and cold, and then when the cold and moisture comes in, it just condenses inside these things. And there's not a whole lot of protection. I'm going to try squirting a little bit of oil in there. Let's see if I can get that in there without making too big of a mess. I'll put some WD-40 in there. Let's see. And I really think I'm going to have to get the flywheel off. So I got to go get some bolts. I'm going to get me some, let me shut this off, go back to the other camera. I'm going to go get some bolts that'll fit here. Looks like 4.5 inches, so we'll get into here. And then I'm going to get, boy, I hope that span is good enough. I'll get me a long nut, they call it. That'll go on here. And then a 3.5 inch bolt to make the difference up. I'll screw that into there, and then I'll be able to turn this and pull that flywheel from the center and take it off. And then I'll clean it up, put it back on there, see if it works. And we just keep working our way through this thing. This is part of how troubleshooting works. You got to kind of start pulling information together. You got to kind of use a little bit of common sense. You know, what would normally be wrong, which we thought was the piston. That's normally where they freeze up. And then you go to the bearings, and, you know, now we're in the flywheel. So it's a process, and I'll be back as soon as I get me some pulling tools. I got to get that flywheel off to see what's going on inside. So I'll be back. Right, you're looking at the bottom of the cylinder, and I took the gasket off, and you can see it's in rough shape. Anyways, what I wanted to point out here is when this is on here, there's an opening right here that has to be made. That is the intake port. So it comes out of the bottom of the crankcase, it goes up through here, it comes out to the little ports in here, and then the piston does the valve action. What I'm going to talk about right now is how do you make the gasket for this thing? So I got some gasket material and my gasket hammer. And there's a couple of different ways we can do this. We can either line this thing up, something like that, and hopefully I didn't move too much. Anyways, that's what we're looking at. Making a mark on it. Let me measure that and make sure I didn't move too much. Normally I would have this sitting straight up and down. I need to be 2 5/8. Yeah. So what I'll do is I could continue on here with my hammer and just keep pounding on that, and it eventually knock a hole in this thing. I don't know that I can hold it steady enough to do that. Let's try it. What the heck? I'm going to try to push in on the center. So what we're trying to do is let the sharp edge of the machine or the cylinder cut the gasket. Without moving it. It's starting to move on me. All right, but what I've done now, I've got a hole cut. And I can take my scissors and finish cutting that out. A big hole like that's a lot harder to do because of the fact that it's it wants to move around. And you can see right there, I did pretty good. I can trim that out right there. Probably using the wrong kind of scissors. I got another pair of scissors that would probably work much easier. Let me get these other scissors. All right, so I just need to trim out around here. I have used tin snips to do this too, because they make those for cutting circular. Look at that. That's going to fit pretty good. Okay, so probably the next thing we want to do is locate these holes. And this little ball peen hammer, it is a gasket hammer. It's shaped like a ball peen hammer, but it's got some sharp edges on it, or pointed edges on it. See the difference here? That point on that's different than a regular ball peen hammer. Now we can work our way around the outside. What I might want to do is put a couple bolts in there. Maybe we'll stick a couple bolts in here to keep it from rotating. Might help me. This is some pretty thick gasket material that I'm using. I'll try to see out of the way of the camera and still do my job. Okay, you can see we got the makings of a gasket. Now I do have a opening in here that I'm going to want to try to identify. I don't know if I can do that with a small punch, but I'm going to try it. So I just used a punch like that. It's thinking it's of the same idea as this. And I'll probably have to trim that the rest of it with the scissors, but I do have the outline. Now, you can buy these gaskets already made. There you go. At the engine supply name that I've listed earlier. But I just wanted to show how you can make a gasket. So I got my gasket made. I've already cleaned up the piston, and I've already cleaned up the inside of here. It cleaned up really well. I put some WD-40 in there so it won't rust before I put it together. Because it's humid and hot. And I still haven't got the flywheel off yet, so that's next. I do need to make another gasket for the back of the mixer. Whatever. I need to make a gasket for that, and I got one on there, but I think I'm going to replace it. I'll clean this all up and replace that too. Might as well. So let me turn the camera over here. Let me pause for a second. Oops. All right, right there. You can see, clean the piston up. There's still got some silicone on here I got to get off. And you can do that with a wire brush. It's on there pretty thick right here. Peel it off. But a wire brush will take that silicone off. You got to remember, back when these engines were being made, there was no such thing as silicone. That was in the future. So, get it cleaned up. I'll blow all the stuff out of the inside. You can see I cleaned up the piston. It's cleaned up pretty good. The rings look pretty good still. They're not broke. And I looked underneath them in the lands, and they're in good shape. This really should run pretty good. So, still working on the flywheel. I got to go get bolts yet. Haven't been to the hardware store, but it's better, but still got that spot. And I think now I'm thinking that it's the flywheel touching the coil. So there's where I'm at right now. I'm going to go see if I can get some bolts for this, and we'll be back. I'll start assembling this thing. All right, I'm back again. All right, put the cylinder on. I was trying to video shoot it, and it was just I was in the way more than I was able to shoot it. Because you're sliding the cylinder over the piston and over the rings, it's a little bit harder because you got to work each piston ring in to get it inside the cylinder, and it's just a lot harder. But you take your time and work the ring in one at a time, and then slip the next one in, and it got in there. This does not, for two-cycle engines normally have, on the piston, they'll have a pin in it or something to line the rings up so that the end of the ring doesn't end up in a port. This does not have that, and I think the reason being, one, they didn't think of it, and the other thing is the rings are 1/4 inch thick, so they're not going to flex very much. You're going to pretty much follow the cylinder wall. So, but that's back on. I wanted to get that back on there because when I start messing around with this, I didn't want that piston flopping around. So, what I did, I got these here are grade, I think these are grade 8. I tried to get grade 5, they didn't have them, but they only came in 1-inch increments, so I couldn't get, I wanted a 4.5, and they didn't have 4.5, so I got a 4. And the same thing here. Then this is, I screwed this onto the nut, onto the bolt that's on here, and then put this in on the other end so I could get my 3 adjustment points. And I could use a puller that pulled way out here, but this is aluminum, and you can break that pretty easy. It's better to pull something from the center right here. It'll be a better opportunity not to break something. So I'm going to tighten this here bolt into the puller, which should make this pop loose if we're lucky. Let me get a screwdriver. Yeah. I'm going to tap on that a little bit. Maybe I'll back that off. Let me see if I can back that off and put that a little bit more in the center. The reason I use harder bolts for pulling is you can snap bolts off if you're not careful. And what I'm looking at now is the centering of this with the end of the crankshaft. This should pop right off fairly easy, I would think. I hope I don't have to add some heat to it. Depends on when the last time it came off. Boy, that's tight. There we go. And earlier I was trying to get you a video with my inside camera. Let me see if I get this sideways where I can look at it. So let's see what you're looking at. All right, see the rust here? Well, even here, all this is rusty, and I think this is where it was dragging. So I think what I'm going to do is try this. I got my regulator right there. I better not do that. I got my regulator right there. So I'm going to get this out of here. I'm going to clean this up. Put it over here on the other bench. And that's pretty rusty. It's turning over much better. My clutch is spinning a little bit. I didn't tighten down the bolts here on the jug yet. I want to put some stuff on the end of the bolts. So there we are. Here's the coil, and then the point. You got a set of points just like most things do. It looks like they're working. They're not too bad a shape. And then you have a condenser down below. I don't know if I can take this thing off very easily. I think this is a bushing. Get a better light on that. I'm going to have to clean all this up. It's really bad shape. A lot of moisture got in there. I'm going to try to loosen up this screw. I'm going to see if I can take that off. I was just looking to see when I go to put this back on. There is these little dogs right there, and there's one on here, so that'll line that back up. We're wondering how it's going to keep the timing right. So this will help me be able to clean this up. So let's get this off to the side. Got lots of cleaning to do. Yeah, let's get that clean. See if this will take it off first. All right, I'm gonna do some cleaning up. I'll come back. I don't want to make this video about me just sanding, but I'll get it cleaned up and I'll come back. Because I'm this close, taking all this and I'm this close to this, I'm gonna go ahead and pop this loose. And I see it's got silicone on it too, so I'm hoping I can get that right off there. Maybe. I hate to say it, but this might have to come off. Try to do this without breaking anything. Something's moving, but I'm not sure what. Oh, there it goes. Whew. Had me scared there for a minute. Get that key way out of the way. The key. Okay, naturally. It's going to be close to that coming off there around that key. Let's see what happens. Oh, great, that worked. All right, so you can see I got a little bit of rust there. Get a rag to wipe that off. That needs cleaned up, definitely. So we got a bushing inside here. If you see, if you can see that, it's a bushing. So, but this is what I was more concerned about. This stuff. I may make a new gasket for that and get rid of that silicone. Silicone's not bad stuff, but not all silicone's made for being around gasoline. and that gasket's tore there too. So I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to clean this up, put a new gasket on it, and then I'll put this back together. I'll finish cleaning up the flywheel. The flywheel is really rusty, and put it back together. And I think we're going to be in good shape. You bet. Okay, back again. What I want to show you is right here. Let me get a little probe here. So this has got a brass bushing inside of here. Get that right in here. That's brass bushing. But right here, there's an oil hole. That's got to be facing up. Of course, that's going to line up our two dogs right there. But it goes on the crankshaft like this, so the oil that's being dripping off of the crankcase is dripping into that hole, and then that oil is the bushing. And the bushing is, there's two bushings, one on the inside, one on the outside. There are no seals on this thing, which I guess that's the way back then they did it a different way, because now everything has a oil seal on it. So I made a gasket, and I'm going to put that on here. I am going to use some of this Permatex high-tech gasket sealant on the gasket. It'll help it keep it from blowing out. So I'm going to put a little bit of that on here. Throw it on the floor. And this gasket I had to make, I handmade it. And you don't want to put a lot of this stuff on there. Way back when they used to do this stuff, they used a shellac, more of a shellac on it. And this is similar to that. They call it high-tech. Anyways, what it's going to do is it's going to seal this on to the metal. I'm going to flip this over because I can do both sides. It's sticky, gooey, but it does a good job. You're not filling it in with silicone. What I'm worried about with silicone is silicone and gasoline don't get together very well. There are some silicones that can handle that, and this is sealing out gasoline. And just silicone is really not the right thing to use. I'm sure it'd probably get by with it, but I'm going to use what I think is better. So I'm going to put the oil hole up. I am going to have to put some grease on this. I'll put some grease on that shaft. Use some of this red bearing or wheel bearing grease. The reason I'm doing that is we don't want a dry start there. And this grease will stay there a long time. I think part of the problem with these motors is, so these used to run with motor oil, and they don't use motor oil. In the regular motor oil, 30 weight motor oil mixed with gasoline at I think it was 16:1 ratio. I'm going to make sure the hole stays open. And at 16:1 ratio, so regular motor oil at 16:1 ratio with gasoline, and it probably smoked pretty good back then. Well, the newer oils are smokeless, so you can use the new 2-cycle oils. But I would mix it still at a fairly rich. Maybe you might be able to get by with 25:1, but it needs the volume of oil, so it wouldn't be a bad thing to go 16:1. One other thing I'm going to do, this does not have any lock washers on it. I'm going to go ahead and use this pipe dope on it. I thought about using Loctite, but I don't think Loctite's necessary on this. It's not a high vibration deal. And I'm just going to put some of this on the threads to make it so they don't lock up in there. And that, not only that, but if there's any holes going into the crankcase in the inside, I want to make sure I seal them off. There's silicone on this dang bolt. It doesn't take a lot of this. You're not trying to hold back the Hoover dam. Mainly keep them so that they don't lock up in the crankcase, and if there is anything in there that needs sealed to keep a tight crankcase vacuum wise, because you're going to try to pull fuel in there, then we want to be able to do that. I think somewhere along the line somebody switched out a bolt, and I was looking for it. I don't see it. Wrong size. Okay. Of course, being hot out here, you don't want to be handling these bare steel parts. I did put some WD-40 on these parts after I cleaned them up. That bolt's got a slot in it, and the slotted ones seem to be the ones that went in down below here. So somewhere along the line, somebody took this apart, and they moved some bolts around. They're the same length. My other engine over there's got lock washers on the nuts, bolts. This one doesn't. So I'm going to put it back just like it was, because the bolts really aren't long enough to put a. You want to get them even torque on them. I'm sure there's a torque specification. All right, so you don't need the grease out here on the end. That's where the flywheel is going to go on. All right, already turning easier. Now the flywheel, was all rusty. You still got some rust on there. I hit it with some rust restore. I cleaned it up with a wire brush and some sandpaper, and then I've sprayed that to. I need to put some more on there in the inside hole here. But here, this is like a governor right here, and it's got some different adjustments on it. One for the spring and one for the cam here. And I'm not sure how all that works because it's got a little roller on here, and I don't see. Oh, that might be the fire points. That might be the fire points. Well, anyways, it's for timing. But I'm going to put some more rust restore on that. I don't want any rust on the inside of the distributor, because that little bits of rust can get into the points. You can see I put some clear coat on this. I cleaned it up the best I could. This is the biggest place I wanted to make sure it was clean, so I took some Scotch-Brite on here, and here, and then I put some clear enamel on there, and then I put a piece of stuff between the points, and I will clean the points back up. But I cleaned all that. There was rust all over in here, and I don't want that in there. I actually can set this back on here. I'm not sure what that hole there is for. I'm still trying to figure out. It's got a collector right here. I guess, from what I'm seeing, there's a drain hole here and it goes up into here, and this must be a collector. I'm going to clean the bottom of that out and look at it. Where's the probe? Well, it's a collector, all right. It's full of rust. So I'll get an air hose and blow that out. This right here. I don't know if it had a piece of foam in it at one time or what, but right now it's packed full of rust. You can see that. That's nasty. All right, get rid of that. So there's that. We're going to let this stuff dry out, and put some more rust restore on the other one, and continue to reassemble it. Right now, I'm better than what I was by a long way. Lot longer or farther along than I was. I think this was rusty in here too. I think that was a big problem. I actually had rust all over the place, but the biggest one might have been here, and it just may have sat so long that rusted that shaft up. And that and old gasoline turns into like a gum, and that maybe in some of it. But you can see the shaft is partially pitted. I think it'll still run because it was running. And then I parked it. Anyways, let me finish up and I'll come back. Okay, I have the flywheel right here. And you can see that I've put some transformer, rust transformer on here, and then I've sprayed it with some of that enamel to protect it. That should help it from rusting anymore, and that's what I'm looking at. So I figured out that this is a governor right here. So what this does is, if the engine starts to overspeed, then this will actually open the points. This little roller right here won't be able to open the points, and it stops firing. So that's what that's for. I want to show you. I'm going to try to get in close here. Let's see if I can zoom in. And adjust up a little bit. I'm going to look at this here. If you can see the points. So that little roller that's in the flywheel, it comes and hits this right here, this arm, this little knob, and opens the points. And to adjust the points, you have to loosen up this nut and then adjust the points with this nut. I was about 30 thousandths. I backed it up or turned this out so that the opening now is about 20 thousandths. And that does change the timing. And what I did was I rotated it until, whoops, that's way at the bottom. I rotated it till this here was moving. I put a pencil down into the cylinder and spark plug hole and rotate it to top dead center. And then with the flywheel on and you rotate it back and forth, you'll see the points break. And they're supposed to break just before top dead center. Now there's a mark here and a mark on the flywheel. I don't know what that corresponds to because it didn't work on anything I had here. I don't know what it's supposed to do. I also looked at the flywheel, and because that question came up to me, myself, let me back you back out a little bit, unless I get this in place. Well, right there. So there's these 3 bolts right here, and they bolt onto this. You cannot mess those up. They're offset just enough that the 3 bolts won't go in unless you got it right. And that is where the keyway is. So right now I've got it set to open it with 20 thousandths. And look how much nicer that turns. I think we're ready to fire this thing up. Get some of this stuff off the bench here because it's going to take off. And if you're trying to adjust the points, it's going to take a little tiny wrench like this, and that's called an ignition wrenches, automotive ignition wrenches. I don't know if you can even buy them anymore, but they're very, very small. And this nut that's on here is not the right nut. It should be what they call a castle nut or a castelet. Anyways, it's got grooves in it for a put a cotter pin in. So it's grooved all the way around. I can show you that on the other one, I guess. But let's put the spark plug in. I don't tighten them down. You can. They're low compression. They're not real high compression engines anyways. And we're going to put some gas in here. And I've got gas. Let me back out so you can see all this, because the gas goes in right here. And I've got this mixed gas and a little tiny funnel. 16 to 1 ratio. And I just keep one of these cans and don't use any gas with alcohol in it, especially in these engines. Now, I'm not going to want to fill this thing all the way up. I just want enough gas in enough gas to start it. You leave gas in these things and it just varnishes up. Even this gas will keep longer than anything with alcohol in it. And I will put some stable in it. Hopefully I got enough gas in there. And it's got a pipe plug here for the thing. Once again, I said this here is the needle that goes in. You put the needle in until it stops, then adjust this so it's just off here, and then to start it, you're supposed to bring it up over here to about 3/4 the way around. So we could put it on the floor and I could kick on it, or I'm going to use my tool here. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Whoops, can't hang on to that. I'm going to need a better battery. I'm going to put you on hold. I got to get another battery. All right, I'm back with a good battery. Let's try that. Wow, I got quite a bit of compression. I don't have enough battery. Hold on, I gotta go get this. Okay, I'm back. What I found out is I had my drill on number 2 instead of number 1, and that caused a problem. There you go. Smoky. Let me get the door open. Smells like an old motorcycle. I do have to put a muffler on it. It doesn't have one right now. They have all different kinds. They used to have a flexible pipe that went from here and went out maybe 8 feet out, so you could get it out away from the clothes, because this ran a wash machine. And not much to say about them. This is if you're going to mess around with old engines, this is not a bad place to start. It's very easy to get parts for these. One thing you do check that, make sure it's got compression. Well, I got to put this cover on yet. I'll put this cover back on here. And make sure that most of the parts are there. You don't want to have to go buy a lot of parts to get it going. It'd be a lot better if you already had everything there, and maybe have to buy a coil or do like I did and take it apart and clean it up. But there's a lot of these out there available. You've seen, if you go to that website, you'll see that there's a lot of years that they were made, and pretty simple. Oh, I still got to put the pulley on too. I forgot that. Get the screw in there. But I'm going to call it an end on this video. I got to get it in there so she can get this thing edited and get it out. I still got to put this pulley on. That'll go on here. Something like that. That's to run the belt. So there you go. If you like what you see, of course, give me a thumbs up and let other people know. And please subscribe. We appreciate it. Have a nice 4th of July.